assuming that the scenario is that we've taught a lesson and now we're going to reteach a lesson to a group of kids that really didn't get it. And that group includes Alexis, Levi, Jaden, Garen, and Mason. And then let's just assume that Alexis is, let's say, English as a second language. So I had a student this year that pretty much they could understand everything. The only thing that you had to watch was sometimes idioms or anything that was figurative language. You had to make sure that she understood that you were talking in figurative language rather than literal. But that helped the rest of the class understand the difference between figurative and literal. So I use it all the time. But anyways, assuming that that's the case, and I pulled the kids back, I would begin with the following. So every day, whenever my daughter comes home, I ask her, what'd you learn today in math? What'd you learn today in English? What'd you learn today in social studies and science? I expect her to be able to tell me what she learned. You know, it's like, what'd you have for breakfast today? Well, I didn't eat, or I had cereal. And it's important that you understand what you're learning about in each of the subjects. We don't just randomly choose something to cover. There are standards set by the state that we have to cover. The standard that we have today is about volume. You understand, we don't always want to teach a particular standard, just like you don't always want to learn, but there are standards that we have to teach and you have to learn to go to the next grade. They were talking about the volume of a rectangular prism, prism being the new word, equals the length times the width times the height. So when we do volume, we're dealing with 3 dimensions. And I like to think of dimensions as whatever you measure directions, however many directions, that's your dimensions. Okay. So Mason, if I were to ask you, give me an estimation of how tall this airwick is. Excellent. Excellent. About 9 inches. Exactly. A lot of times kids, including me when I was a student, don't think that it's important to get the unit of measure. If I do the math right, why does it matter, man? It does. Let's say that I ask you to go to the store and I ask you to get me 6 feet of rope and you come back with 6 inches of rope. Can I do what I need to do? Probably not. Let's say that I ask you to come back with 6 inches of rope and you used my money and paid for 6 feet of rope. Mama gonna be happy with that one? Probably not. So it really does matter, and it matters so much that I'm going to focus on giving the unit of measure first in my answers, okay? So let's go to the second scenario. Let's say that I am going to deal with this figure right here, Alexis. What figure is that? Correct. That is a rectangle. So if I wanted to say the area, again, we can't get an area rug that covers the floor by just going one way. We got to go that way and the other way to cover a floor. So Mason, what would I have to multiply to get the area of that rectangle? Exactly, 10 inches times 5 inches. So I would have to put, since I'm multiplying inches times inches, a little 2 up there in my answer. Be inches squared. And then 5 times 10 is 50. 50 inches squared. So what's different now today is that we have a third dimension. What is this? DVD? It's a DVD case. And if I wanted to fill this DVD case, could I just tell you how wide it is? Could I say that, Mason? Probably not, right? Levi, could I tell you the width and the length and that be enough to fill it? Absolutely not. In fact, this tells you the picture of the movie and it covers the area of just the top. But it doesn't go all the way down. So when we talk about dealing with volume, we have to talk about dealing with the width, the length, and the height or depth. But 3 dimensions. So taking this rectangle up, okay, we're going to call this a rectangular prism. So, Alexis, which one of those would you think would be the length? Red, brown, or black? Exactly. The brown. Normally the length, in this case, it looks like it's longer. So the longer one would be the length. Garen, which one do you think would be the width? Excellent. 4 inches. And Levi, which one would be height? The red, 2 inches. So if I want the volume, I need the area of the rectangle, but I need the area of the rectangle all the way back. So I take this area, 2 times 4 inches squared, times 8 inches back. And I get that for volume. So it's length times width times height. Now, when I multiply, again, we got to remember, does it matter, Garen, which order we multiply in? No. So Mason, if I say, what's 2 times 4? Yeah, 8. Mason, what's 4 times 2? Yeah, 8. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter when you multiply which order you do. Further, when you have more than 2, we've learned that we try to group. We group a couple together that make it easier to multiply by. So for example, 2 times 5 is 10, and anything times 10 is really easy. So in this particular case, we might look at it and say, well, I have to multiply 8 times 4 times 2, but 2 times 4 is 8. So really what I'm multiplying is 8 times 8. Right? So I have inches times inches times inches. I get inches cubed. And then I have 2 times 4 is 8 times 8 is 64 inches cubed. And that's how I get the volume of a rectangular prism. Okay. So next, what we're going to do together is we're going to, at this particular point, I think I tell you what I would do with the group. So what I would do is I would show them, we're going to call our unit of measures, every answer is going to be in centimeters. And we're going to count how many blocks that we would have as 1 for each level. 1 on top of another would be 2. And then we're going to count the width as the shorter of the 2, and the length that's the longer of the 2, counting the little circles, as 4. So this is 1 by 2 by 4. And notice, and I would show them, if I had a 2 by 4 by 3, I would have 24, and I would show that a 1 by 4 by 6 is also 24. So it wouldn't matter how I counted them, how I ordered them, how I placed them, I would have 24 in each case. And I would say, I know that because I have 3 of them, rectangular prisms, in both cases, so I have to have the same amount, and that's the case. So then I would walk them through, probably using Alexis to do an example so that we make sure just doing, let's say, a 3 by 2 by 4, and make sure that everyone knows how we're going to calculate it together. Then I would do one with the whole group. That would be a different dimension. And lastly, I would hand them out a piece of paper. They would be doing the same things, let's say 3 different things or 4 in a different order, so they're not looking at each other to see what they're doing to do it, but they would be doing the same 4. And whenever they were done, we would go over them together. And obviously, we would be able to identify whether or not each of them understood it and where they made the mistake, if they made a mistake, so that we understand how to correct it if they made a mistake. And that's the way that I would have, from beginning to end, a reteaching on a lesson on volume.